Hello, tester. All right. Here who speaks is Hugo Paris, and I want to welcome you to our first free course called of Functional Testing Automation Process with Selenium. This course is geared towards beginners in the subject and who are in search, let's say, a recipe to start automating your first tests properly, a more organized and efficient way. Well, we start with my presentation. As I informed, my name is Hugo Paris. I graduated in Analysis and Systems Development by Unicarioca and also postgraduated in Software Engineering here by UFRJ. I exercised for 3 years the function of test analyst in a reputable software factory here of Rio de Janeiro. And this experience granted me, let's say, a luggage so I could launch my first book on Selenium in Portuguese. That is included in the English and Spanish version. I'm very accomplished with that. Currently, I am the Inove Teste, a project that I created whose goal is to disseminate knowledge about test automation throughout the world through my books and also from my course. So, thanks for the attention and see you in the next class. Hello! This course aims to help you create an automated test project in the Java language using the features Selenium IDE and Selenium WebDriver, where you will go through all the steps that make up a basic process of automation of functional test. The target audience of this course are people who are in the area of software quality and who aim to implement a basic and rapid process of automating functional testing using these Selenium features that I have just to inform. As a prerequisite, it is recommended that you have the basic knowledge about software testing. Now, what a test case is a test suite. Understand what an action or reaction is about testing a system. Also, it is important that you know the basic elements of HTML and that you also have a familiarity with the language Java programming. In the next video lesson, we will talk a little bit more about the tool we will use to perform this process of automating the test. Thanks again for the attention, and until then. Hello! Back in the course, I want in this video lesson talk a little bit about the tool that we will use to assist us in the process of automating functional tests, and it's here, the Selenium. I used this image because it has everything to do with the history of Selenium, to which you will know from the next slide. What is Selenium and how did Selenium come about? Selenium, in fact, is a suite consisting of 4 tools that serve to automate the tests of web applications and that are then the Selenium IDE. It's a record and play tool, which means you will be able to create and run the test scripts. Besides, we have the remote control, which is the first project of Selenium, and it's a local server and independent that reproduces the execution of your tests. We also had the Web API driver, which is actually the second version of remote control. However, you will be able to use it seamlessly into a programming language that you are accustomed to program. And lastly, we have the grid, which is a feature of remote control for running tests on several connected machines in a network, popularly known as a distributed testing. Referring to the history of Selenium, the tester Jason Huggins in mid-2004 was testing an application internal of the company to works when he realized that he could, improve your time in the manual testing activity that we know is an activity that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. So, for this, he decided to create a JavaScript library that was in interaction with the browser. And it was this library that he decided to name it Selenium. And yet at the time, a two alternative test for several testers, who were also no longer supported and stay there dependent of other test tools, such as Quick Test, which is a page tool from the Mercury company, and that was very expensive. And by the curious, in the periodic table, Selenium is the antidote to Mercury. So, there is the reason for the name. Because Selenium arose for this purpose to, be better than the comparing tools. Mainly this which was from the Mercury company, and that in Portuguese means Mercury. So, Jason Hughes, in a very unusual way, put his name in there demonstrating a certain competition. That is why it's called Selenium. Well, in the next class, I will talk about why use Selenium. Why should we choose Selenium as the main test automation solution? Thanks again for the attention, and until soon. Hello! In these my nearly 4 years, I have been acting with automated tests. Without a doubt, the Selenium was the best software test automation solution I've ever encountered, and I would have countless motives to convince you to also adopt it as the main test automation tool. But I made a point of listing only the main and most important ones here. The first reason is that through it you will be able to create and run independent test scripts type of browser or operating system you are using. This through the Selenium IDE, which is a Firefox browser plugin. You also, in the Selenium IDE, will be able to add plugins that allow you to elaborate scripts in a more robust way to better meet business needs. Not to mention that, through Selenium WebDriver, you will be able to integrate these scripts which you have generated into a test project, be it in Java, C#, PHP, Python, or even Ruby. In addition, you will be able to perform configuration tests and also performance tests through the execution of the distributed or parallel tests, which is through the grid solution. That is, with only one script, you can run it multiple times and simultaneously on a particular machine, or even you can run it on any machine that is connected to a network. And this machine can be a Mac, can be a Linux, can be a Windows. This machine may be using Chrome as a browser. The other may be using Firefox, another Internet Explorer, or another Safari. It doesn't matter. Your script test will run normally. Remembering that Selenium has been used as the main cloud testing technology, which is the famous cloud testing. Today, this service is quite famous on the internet. Many companies have adopted this type of test, and the main companies responsible for this type of service. For example, cross-browser testing, source labs, and also the browser stack. And Selenium was developed by large professionals in the area of QA, as for example, Selenium WebDriver was created by a former Google software testing engineer. Did you know that? And he is currently working on Facebook. We also had people who participated in the project and belonged to the Mozilla Firefox organization, and among other large companies, as you can see here. Are the main companies where there were professionals who were involved with this Selenium design. And the main reason for you to adopt the Selenium, start working with him, is that it is totally open source. In other words, besides being free, you have access to, to his source code, where you will be able to the customization you want to make and adapt in the best possible way to your business, to the project in which you operate. So, this is the coolest in Selenium. So I hope you've been impressed by all these advantages of Selenium. And in the next class, we will talk a little bit about process in software testing. See you then! Hello tester! Here in this module, you will learn a bit about process and how it works within the test area software. As in any area of activity, the process is an excellent strategy for those who want to perform a particular task in a more organized and more efficient way. We can use, for example, companies, factories that produce foods, clothes, automobiles. Anyway, if we repair, all of them have a manufacturing process. Before the product even reaches you, he goes through a lot of modifications. A process of the transformation of a raw material in the cleaning as well as in the finishing part, so you can get that product in perfect condition. This also happens in the software testing area. If we aim to deliver quality software, a very consistent software that is serving good part, or rather, most say so, customer requirements, it is necessary that you come to test it within a well-defined process. Okay? So, advancing here to our next slide. I'm here illustrating you the steps, so let's say, of the software testing process, which is composed of plan. That is, before even from you start to run the tests, know that has to be tested. You plan. You raise the requirements. You understand the customer's need. Understands the need of the product, and only then is that you pass to the other step, which would design the cases of test. So, once you have the notion and the knowledge of the product you are working on, you elaborate your test plan. It's the test cases. The tool that you intend to use, the test technique that you intend to use, the functional test, the unit test, be it performance rate, anyway. And right after that you execute the plan. You perform all this planning to validate that what you defined there in the test cases are covering the requirements. If the software really is behaving the way you expected your case test. And after everything is tested and validated, you deliver the result through execution reports of the test, showing which scenarios have passed, which scenarios have failed, and there the team can identify where the failures are to be corrected. So you see that it is necessary to follow this process. From the moment you do any of these activities in incorrect order, surely you will not make a good test. In addition to performing the correct activities, you also need to run them in the correct order. This is what defines a good software testing process. Well, in the next class, I'm going to talk about the process in the test automation part, because I realized that many companies have a process for executing of manual tests. But as far as automated tests are concerned, that is no longer the standard of planning or execution. So, I'm going to talk a little better about this next class. Thanks for the attention, and until then. Hello! Still on the subject of process, in this video lesson, I would like to talk a little bit about the process in functional testing automation. From this class onwards, let us get into practice, where you will learn in a very dynamic way how the flow of the process. You will go through all the steps that make up this process and ranging from the selection of the tool of the test automation until the reports are issued. Here's an illustration that is not very complete, but just for you to understand more or less how it works, this string. I decided here to separate a diagram that I created myself in a company that I worked and that speaks exactly what we are going to do in this course. So starting here at first, after we selected tool, which in the case will be the Selenium IDE, we will create our first test scripts. You will see how it works in practice to capture the actions performed in the browser, unlike those that are only generated, and also how they are executed. Soon after, you will see how to save these scripts, in what format they are saved, and how you can access them again. After this activity, we will ask the following question. All scripts for a given functionality of the system, i.e. a test suite, is it complete? And not only complete, but is she also consistent? Because sometimes you can develop all the scenarios of a given functionality. But before to automating, or even before, better saying, to export these scripts, you have to see if they really are working properly. Better say, for example, if you have finished doing the manual tests, of course, the automation it is recommended you do it after you perform the manual tests. There are people who work in a parallel way. They do the manual tests and immediately automate the tests. I always advise to do the end. After you did all the test planning, you run the test cases and are meeting the requirements well. You've seen that everything is in perfect condition, so you go in there and automate it. So this is also true when you are exporting these test scripts to development environment where you at, be it in your C#, be it in Java, be it in Python, and so on. So in the decision here you will see if your scripts are really ready. If really all of them are ready, working perfectly, you will perform the export. Otherwise, you will finish crafting the other scripts. It will execute them to see if everything is okay. And being alright, you can do the exporting. The export activity consists of if you export the script to the format and you are going to work. So all the test scripts by the Selenium IDE are saved in HTML format. However, when you are exporting, then you will choose whether you will want to export it to a project. C# using the framework in Unity, or if you want to export it to a Java project using the JUnity framework or the Tech Energy, that is the framework that will be used in this course and between other formats available. Soon after you will check, all scripts have already been exported? Not a script is missing from the suite? No, everything's okay. Then you go to the next activity that would import these scripts into your test project created. There you will also learn how to do. After importing, you will simply perform the following adjustments that can be from the reference of certain libraries. Or then parameterize the values and among other adjustments. Because as much as you export the scripts that are compatible with the technology of that project, it is still necessary to make adjustments, even if it's minor adjustments. But it is practically almost impossible you import a script that will work immediately, which is already recognized immediately by the project. So this activity also becomes necessary. And here in the diagram, I have already closed here because I did not put the execution of the tests and the reporting, because for the idea here, if your automated tests are working perfectly in the Selenium IDE, it is concluded that they will also be working perfectly in their integrated environment. However, in this course we will add two more activities here to certify that the tests are consistent. There would then be the execution of the scripts in the Java project and issuing reports to make sure all tests are working perfectly. Then we end our process of automating functional testing. Okay? Then I will wait for you in the next class to start the practical part of the course. A hug, and until then. Well, by initiating our process of automating functional testing, first thing to be done from now on is to choose the tool that we will use to generate our test script. And we choose the Selenium IDE. The Selenium IDE, as previously reported, is an extension of Firefox where you will be able to record your actions in some application web, be it a site, be it a system, anyway. And these actions will be captured in a script form, and that can be played as many times as you want. Remembering that the Selenium IDE is currently in version 3, but this version has removed many interesting features, including export functionality of the scripts. So, unfortunately, it is a version that is very limited, and so I recommend you use the last version that had all the functionalities, that is the 291, and that is compatible with the versions Firefox 54 or lower. So, accessing the internet here, if you search for Selenium IDE, you will get access here to the Firefox extension add-ons website. However, the version was already considered obsolete and was removed from the site. Then you will not be able to download this version of Selenium IDE here from the Firefox extension website. The extension is already in the 3.5.8 version, and you may have access to previous versions as long as it is from version 3 onwards. The older version is 3.0.2.0. So the best thing to do is you try to get the extension by the n-axis of the course. In this class you will be able to access this version of Selenium in the attachments, right? But the other alternative, would you search it on another site? For example, here on the site A9T9. Here on the site A9T9. You have access to the download of this version that is exactly this one. By clicking on this link here, you can download the extension, okay? But if you don't get around here, just going to class attachments, you will have access to. Alright? And Firefox, you can very well get it on the official Mozilla website by accessing the version history. You click here, all Brazilian versions of Firefox. Remember that it's already in version 66.0. In the accessing history, you have here all versions. This Selenium IDE is compatible with version 54 or lower. If you use the version 55 or higher, this extension is no longer compatible. Only version 3 of the Selenium IDE. Then you will download here one of these versions. I strongly recommend the version 53. Then you click here. If it is Windows, click here. If your operating system is Linux, click here. And so are the other operating systems. After downloading, you will simply open your Firefox. Here in mine, the Selenium IDE is already installed, but let's say it was the first time. You will come here in Options, Extensions, and by clicking on the gear, you will choose to install from a file and you will simply search the extension .xpi file you just downloaded from the Selenium IDE. You will select it and click Open. Then just reboot Firefox and open it again. The Selenium IDE will already be available here on the toolbar. If you are not, you can also come in more options and click Customize. And you will find the icon of Selenium IDE here, where you will be able to move it to the bookmarks bar or to the toolbar. Once you download the Selenium IDE, you will open it and you will see that window here. Where I am going to show what the main parts of it mean. Here, where number 1 is, as you can see, here would be the toolbar. Just like the browser has its toolbar, this window for the Selenium IDE chat here also has this toolbar, where you can define on here the base URL, which is the URL of the system you are going to test. Speed control of the tests. When you go run, you will determine whether you want a very fast, reasonable or very slow execution. And also you will be able to just maximize here. Ready. The image is not great, but what you can see here for a while those other buttons. Here are for you to be able to run the tests, where the first one is to perform all the tests. This one for you to run one by one, without counting the other buttons that are not enabled by having no test case here. What would you pause the test, or you put a breakpoint and etc. Well, the second part here of the screen would be the list of your test cases. Here you will define all the scenarios, and the set of test cases here is what makes up your suite of tests, where you will get access to information on how many have passed and how many have failed. Third, we have here the space where we will go interact with our script, i.e., it is here that the captured script will be displayed and can be modified. And lastly, we have the fourth part of the screen, that is our footer. Here would be the execution information, the log, where you can also access a small documentation, the Selenium IDE. Know what is each command. Thanks again for your attention, and until then. What parameters it requests and among other options. Okay? Thanks again for your attention, and until then. Well, so in the next lesson, we will show you how to build our first test script using the record option. Okay? Thanks again for your attention, and until then. Well, now I am done talking, and we're going to practice. Let's start by elaborating our first automated test scripts. And for that, I will use the site Inove Teste. In particular, the contact menu, so that we can generate 3 scripts. One to validate the layout of the form. Another to validate the receive flow, would be the criticism of fields, and also the mainstream, which would send the message. Then you will see now here how it works in practice, the Selenium IDE. I'm going to access here my Firefox. I already have the Selenium IDE open. Remember that you can lessen it here. You can move a little more here without a problem. And how it works. The first thing to do is you turn on the recorder option. When you click this button, and it is like this selected, means any interaction you have with the browser, which in the case is Firefox, Selenium will capture this action and will describe here in this area of the source code. So as soon as you turn on the recorder, the first thing to be done is to access the site which will be tested, which in the case we choose this, that is the livros.inoveteste.com.br/contato. I'm going to press enter. And note that Selenium has not yet captured access to the site, because I have not yet made any interaction with the screen. Only when I do the first interaction is that it will catch access to the page. The first test case will then validate the screen layout. So just to show you here, I'm going to click with the right button on top of the animated test case, and I will click Properties. I will tell the name of my scenario, remembering that by good practice is advised to use the prefix CT preceded by the number of the test case. How does it? My first one I will put here CT01, and then the name of the test scenario, all together. Okay? No room. So I will put here validate layout. Right, validate layout. I will give OK. We already have our first test case, and now I'm going to take the action. As I want to validate the layout, I will use only the assert commands. The assert commands, as you can see here, I go here in commands. The Selenium IDE has a huge list of commands, and among them we have this one, which is the assert. This command serves to validate the elements, knowing if the element is present, whether the element has a certain value, know if the element is marked, is a check command of an element state. We will use the context menu to make this capture. The first thing is to check the title of the page. Then I click right here on the title. That is send a message, and I choose the assert text option. Just click here. That is. The Selenium picked up the text of that my element here, which is being mapped by the CS selector. As it has no ID and name, the Selenium ends up picking up by CSS selector. This command here that is generates automatically, it serves me to focus on the screen, but it does not come to be useful. Then it can be deleted. Note that Selenium ended up not including the open command, which is the command to be able to access the site and so validate my layout. He didn't do it because I just didn't click a button or just fill out a field. I just used the context menu for this. That's why Selenium didn't assign this command. So in the view, need to add here by right-clicking and choosing Insert New Command. When this space comes up here, I'm going to fill it here by selecting the Open command. And placing the target as /contact. What's supposed to mean? The Selenium will be given open based on the base URL that it captures automatically. That's the site liros.inoveteste.com.br, and will assign the contact directory so that it can be accessed, the contact form of the site. I will give it 2 clicks just to simulate and see if it's actually accessing in a way correct. Okay, accessed correctly. So continue. I will map here and the other elements. Another important element to check if it exists on the screen would be the fields themselves. So I'm going to click here with the right button on top of the name field, and instead of putting assert test or something of the sort, I will select this command, which is assert element present. Namely, I want to check if really the element is present on the screen. I will click on it and repeat the procedure for the other fields. including the Submit button itself. Ready. Here's my first properly automated test scenario. So I'm just going to save it. Incidentally, before saving it, I can run it to see if everything is okay, and so I can save it. Never save it before verifying that the script is actually working correctly. So I'm going to adjust the speed of execution to slow, so you run at a reasonable speed and so the test won't break. I am going to take a play 1 so I can run this case. Let's see how it behaves. Accessed the site, validate the title, and is now validating the presence of the elements. It made a mistake here because I had a blank space. Let's run it again. Accessed the site, validate the title, and now validating the presence of the fields. Okay, now it is gone. Well, actually, before I save, I'm going to create the next script. Right-click that region and choose New Test. Following the same pattern, I will put CT02 validate criticism required fields. Remember that apart from being altogether, it is advisable not to put accentuation in the words. And in my case test, I will validate the criticism of the fields when trying to send the message. Taking advantage of my first test case, I can leverage this command. I click on it, squeeze Ctrl+C and access my new test case. I can give a Ctrl+V that it pastes the same command. Then after accessing the site, I will simulate a click on the Submit button without filling in the fields. So I'm going to enable my recordings and I will click the button. Note that the Selenium recognized this action. Click the button. And after a certain time, I will ask to validate the required fields. But before, I will assign a pause command around 7 seconds. That was more or less the wait time for the server to respond with this criticism. remembering that seconds are only reported in the milliseconds format. So 1000 milliseconds are a second. So as I want the 7 seconds, I put 7000 milliseconds. In the next line below, I will now map this criticism. I'll also use the assert command over them. I will click the button right in each criticism and I will select it assert test for each one. Okay, our reviewers mapped. I'm going to run this test again. I'm shutting down my recorder, and now I'm going to rerun the test to see if it's meeting the requirements. Here he accessed the site. Clicked on the button. However, by the fact that the server takes more than 7 seconds to respond, it ended up breaking. So let's increase our pause here in 10 seconds. In fact, save the no. This will stay for the next class. Let's run again. I made this change. I'm going to play it again. Let's go to 17 minutes of class. Accessed the site, clicked the submit button. It will wait for seconds. It is validating the reviews. Okay, another test case passed. And lastly, I will create here a new test case that is the main string that is the send message. So I will put here CT03 send message and I will give OK. And I can do the same thing. I can copy the first command from the previous test case and paste it into my new. Good. In this test case, I will simply fill in the field and immediately after clicking send, wait and validate the sending message successfully. Then this will use the type command, which is the command to fill in the fields, but whoever will do that is our own recorder. So simply I will enable it. And after accessing the site, I will fill in the fields. I'm going to put my name on it, my mail, the subject, and the message. Good. If you repair, The Selenium has captured all of these input actions in the fields. So he captured it by informing my name, my email, my subject, and the message, using the type command. Finally, I'm going to click the send button, wait for deadline, the waiting time, you better say, and I will validate my success message using a search text. Here I will put a waiting time. I will insert new command, pause here, and I will also put some 10 seconds. Let's replay this scenario again. Well, accessed the site. And now start filling in the fields and click the submit button. It will wait for up to 10 seconds to validate the success message. Well, the message ended up fine after 10 seconds. That is why the mistake happened. I'm going to put here 12 seconds. And I will reproduce it again. In fact, put 15 seconds to make it more secure. I will reproduce again. Accessed the site, begins to fill the fields, click the send button, and is now waiting for 15 seconds time. And validated the success message. Another test can run successfully. And to finalize the video lesson, an interesting thing to be done in your scripts would be the comments. The comments help you identify what your script is doing in each snippet. To do this, simply right-click on the command you want and click New Command. A line will appear above the command where you can enter a comment. So the first thing that is done is access with the site. After accessing the site, alias accesses the Inove Teste site contact page. The more you detail, the better. Then here, at that point, validate the layout of the contact form. Or rather, do not need to use an infinitive format. We can use access the page, validate the layout, That's better. Repeating also in the other cases of test, here I can also copy the comment with Ctrl C and paste with Ctrl V. Here, hold click, new comment. Click the Submit button without filling the fields. And from here, I put valid the criticism of required fields. Here on the third, we will also comment accesses the contact page, and then fill all fields contact. At this point, click the send button, and from that point here, validates the send success message. Ready. So we have here our 3 tests working perfectly and all duly commented. In the next video lesson, I will show you how to save these scripts. A hug, and until then. Hello. Before we save our scripts, I would like to run the test again, and this time showing you the features of a breakpoint. So you see how it works. You choose which point where the breakpoint occurs and can advance it step by step in your scripts. So let's get back here to our Selenium IDE. I will do the following. I will choose a case to exemplify the use of these functionalities. And also you choose from where you want to start the test. So for example, I'm here on the contact screen. I can just ask it for the test to start running through the click of the Submit button. I'm here on my CT02 Validate Criticism Required fields, so I simply can ask the Selenium IDE not to access the site again, but simply do the click the button and validate the criticism. To do this, we use the S key on the specific command, where display icon will be assigned, meaning that the test will run from that point on. Another interesting feature in the automated test run is the breakpoint, which you can use in the BK. The breakpoint will determine at what step I want to take a break, having the possibility of being able to advance step by step. So, I will choose to give a breakpoint from the validation of the third criticism. Then press the BK on it. Note that a pause signal has been included here. That is, the test will start from the click of this button without having to access the site again, and will be interrupted here in the validation of the third element, where I will simply have the option to give continuity of execution or to advance the implementation step by step, okay? So let's get to the example. I'm going to click play. Note that you have started the test from the click on the button and will already begin the validation of the criticisms. Validated the first field, validated the second and stopped on third. Note that here appeared a pause and the reboot button, where you click on it. The Selenium IDE will give continuity to the test. That is, I will validate the other fields, the criticism of the other fields, or I can go validating command by clicking this button here of iterar, which will be advanced step by step. So if I give a click here on it, note that the Selenium IDE has advanced to the next command, and if I click again, it validates this field here and stops at the other command. If I click restart, the Selenium IDE continues to run normally, okay? I'm going to do it here again. Choose this test case, validate layout, same thing. I will put here to start the test from here without needing do the screen loading, and I will put a breakpoint right in the first validation of the presence of the element. I press the BK and I'm going to play. Note that it started from here and already had a breakpoint before validating the first element. I'm going to squeeze again into iterar. Note that you are validating field by field. I will now click in here again. It will validate the second, validate, and the breakpoint fell on the third. If I press reboot, the Selenium IDE will give continuity. The test runs normally. Ready. So, these are some of the functionalities of running the test. I hope you have learned, and until the next lesson to save our scripts. A hug. Hello. Following for our next activity of the test automation process, we will now save each of the scripts that were generated. The Selenium IDE saved these scripts in standard HTML format, and every time you are saved, you must assign this extension, otherwise the Selenium IDE ends up saving us an unrecognizable file. We will access here our Firefox and our Selenium IDE again. And to save, just do the following. In Properties, you can copy here the name of your test case, and with it selected, you come in File and Save Test As. I'm simply going to access the location where I want to save this script, In case I will save in our free course folder of Selenium inside attachments. I'm going to create a folder here called Inove Teste. Actually, I can put the name of the automated test scripts. Inside this folder, I'm going to create an HTML call and the other Java call, which will receive our exported scripts. And since it was not enough, it was also necessary to save the test suite, because this list here is represented for a suite. So to save the suite, just come on File, Save Test Suite as, it will appear there in the directory, and I will put here SG01 contact. That is the same name as the folder. I will also put the HTML, and I will save to make sure the suite was successfully saved. We can open it again and see if the test cases attached to it are loaded. Okay, they've been loaded. My suite is already working perfectly, and is already fit to have your test case exported. So, until the next class. Thanks! Well, after we save our test scripts, the questions for the decision. The test suite is complete and consistent? Here we go. It is. We elaborate all possible scenarios. We run to see if it really is working properly. And we saved the scripts along with the suite. It is alright. Then we click yes. Otherwise, if you still have missing scenarios to elaborate, or simply your suite is not running 100%, because there are some scenarios that are breaking, then you click no. Clicking no. Let's click again. You are redirected to the crafting activity of the test script that is missing, or simply turning if you need to make any adjustments to the scripts. Then you will go through the execution step again to find out if that script is running correctly. It will save you again until you return to the decision. Now what? Is the switch complete and consistent? Oh, here we go. Now it is. Now my suite is working 100%. So let's move on to the next activity, that is exporting our scripts. This activity is the transition between the Selenium IDE and the Selenium WebDriver. That is from this activity that we are now going to create our test project in a specific language, which for that course was chosen Java. So, as I informed, by default, the Selenium IDE saves our HTML scripts, and it has an export functionality where I can choose several formats for these scripts to be converted. So we are here, for example, C# with the NUnit framework using WebDriver. Have also C# using the NUnit framework. Instead of being WebDriver, it be using remote control, which is the first version of the library of Selenium. And so, various formats with various combinations of frameworks and libraries of Selenium. As for our case here, in the example of this course, we will use this format here, which is Java with TestNG framework. This TestNG is very similar to JUnit, which is one of the most famous unit test frameworks for Java. Being that I opted for TestNG because it does a merger of JUnit with NUnit, which is for .NET, C#, and it has thus an easier syntax to understand, and if not me mistaken, I also think that only he has access to parallelism functionality. That is, you can run your test in a parallel manner. That is, run on multiple browsers simultaneously. So that is why I chose this framework. And we will also select the WebDriver, which is the API that we will use to create this test project. And these exported files should be saved in the .java format. So accessing here again, my Selenium IDE, I will do a procedure much like that of saving the scripts. So I'm going to select my test case that I want. I can also come here to copy his name. And I go here in Archive. Instead of Save Test As, I will put Export Test As and selected the appropriate format, that is in Java /testng/WebDrive. And I will click here on it. So notice that the wizard opened here, so I can save my exported file, and I will access the same folder where I saved the HTML scripts. And this time I will save it in the Java folder. I'm going to paste the name here, Java. Save, and I will repeat the same procedure for the other files. File, export test as. I choose this here again. Already opened the location where I saved the last exported script. And I am going to export the 32. And size it could not be different. I also have to export the test suite in .java format. I'm going to click here in File, Export Test As, Java /testng/WebDriver. st01 contact.java. Okay? I'm going to save. Okay. Remembering that can be created here a briefcase from the suite. I didn't create it. st01 contact. Okay, here are all my scripts exported. In the next video lesson, we will then start on the subject of WebDriver. You will better understand what the API is, so it is service, and then move on to our next step in the process of test automation, which is import of the script into our test project. You alright? Then a hug, and until then. Hello tester! Finally we reached the module of Selenium WebDriver. This is another Selenium solution that will allow you to run your test scripts within of a project whose was developed in the language in which you work. Of course, in this course, we will make the example in Java, but it is available for other languages programming. So, under this definition and telling a little bit about the history of WebDriver, it is the following. In mid-2006, the Google test former named Simon Stewart, he decided to improve the Selenium library that had been created in 2004 by Jason Huggins. And in this new project, he decided to add new commands to interact better with certain elements of the page, and he also allowed this library to communicate with several other browsers, and also be integrated into other programming languages. Because the first version of Selenium, which is this one, is the Selenium RC, known as Selenium 1.0. If I am not mistaken, it only worked in just one browser, and it was only compatible with Java. So the Selenium WebDriver has revolutionized. That is, it allowed the other programming languages could use the Selenium library and that the tests could run on several browsers, as you can see here in this illustration. And the Selenium WebDriver project went on to be known as Selenium 2.0 because it was the merger of what had already existed with these enhancements of Simon, and this API has now been disclosed and to be available for use in mid-2008. So in the next video lesson, we will create our test project in Java, and soon after I will show how the WebDriver library configuration import is done to see how it works in practice. Thanks for the attention, and the next. In this video lesson, we will create our test project in Java. For this, I will use the free Eclipse IDE, and I will create this project through the truck file new Java project. Just enter the name of the project and the location where it will be saved. Other settings I will present in the next class, right? So, for now, let's just access the site. From Eclipse, download of the IDE. The site itself will already recognize the type of operating system you are using, the architecture, and will already provide the compatible executable. Then simply you will click here to be able to start the download. And it will save, and soon after you will run and install. The installation is easy. There's no mystery. I'm not going to reproduce here because I already have an Eclipse installed on my machine, okay? Remember that you also need to download Java. If your machine is not configured with Java, you also have the download Java, that is the JRE, the Java-oriented development environment. So I'm going to click here. In fact, I'm going to write JRE. The correct page will appear here. I will simply choose the installer compatible with my operating system. In the case here is Windows 64. I'm going to download this executable. Then just install it. That is, the procedure is also simple, as if you were to install the Eclipse IDE. In addition to installing Java, you need to configure the environment variables so that your system recognizes Java. So if I am going to put it here, edit environment variables. I will put here environment variables and here in system variables. I have to create a variable called Java underline home. How are you doing here? My operating system setup, but showing here how it is so variable name Java underline home, and the value of the variable is the path where your Java, or better JGK, is installed. You will click OK, and we'll reference this variable here in the path variable. You will put edit and you will create here a line. You can see that mine is already set up. You will create a line named %Java home %bin. That is, to put the percent symbol here. Inside it, you will put a variable Java underline home and will complement it with bin. For Windows to have access to this folder, which is the root folder of your Java, then you're going to be OK. Just a moment that the stack of my mouse is over. Then, after you set up this environment variable, you will simply access the prompt of command. It will inform the Java version command, and will press the enter key. If your operating system is actually configured, it will list here the version of your Java, as shown here, the version 1.80.0/191. So my machine already accepts Java. Then after Eclipse is installed, Java is set up. You will already to be able to run it. Remember that my version is a little outdated. It is that it has a good time that does not program in Java, but it works perfectly with our example here, of course. Remember that Eclipse already creates this workplace, this space you work here, which is in your user folder. I recommend it not to change and simply click Launch. It will appear on this home screen here, where you will have access to a shortcut in order to create a Java project. Or simply, you do the traditional procedure, that is to go into File, New, Java Project. You're going to open an assistant configuration of your project, and simply you will only inform the name of it, which I will put Inove Teste, the name of our project. He will also recognize Java from his machine. You will now select the most appropriate version. Then I recommend you not move either. And only that, the location already defines. It will create a new folder that in the Eclipse workspace, and you simply click Finish. Pretty simple, huh? So, in the next video lesson, I will show you how to set up your project and then install your libraries so that you can recognize the comments contained in your test scripts. Alright? Thanks for the attention, and until then. Hello! Continuing here to elaborate our test project, we will now set it up so that it can successfully receive the import of our test scripts. The first thing to be done is to include that in the src in the folder of our project, a package, or rather, a package named con.example.test. Why is that? Because this is the default package that is referenced in our exported scripts. If a package with a different name is created, a reference error will occur. So accessing here, for example, the script one of our scripts, you will check the standard package con.example.tests. That is all of them. Here too. And here too. So, opening our project here, remembering that the project was created but it did not exhibit because it is hidden here in this sidebar. Just click here on this icon and it will display here all my projects in Java, and is here my Inove Teste project. I'm going to expand it. Oh, can I fix it here? Anyway, then notice that a default library was created here, which is in the Java library because it is a project. Java has to have the Java library. And it was also created in the src folder that I can say it would be as if it was the root folder of the project. Then right-clicking, I will come here in New by clicking on the folder. I'm going to come in New. I will put here package, and I will put the exact name of the package that will be with .example .tests. For security reasons, we can also copy directly from our script. Click up here. And I'm going to paste here. It is the right thing. You're going to forget some handwriting, something like that. It's just that it already creates there in the src folder. I am just going to click Finish. Ready. Here's my package. Notice that it is white because no class is assigned the reference. So it is just the first procedure to be done. Now let's set up the necessary libraries for our project. The first of these is the TestNG framework, which you can download and install it through this option here, Eclipse Marketplace. In previous versions, you should do this procedure, install new software. And now it seems that the new version of Eclipse have this new modality of download the libraries. You're going to come here, going to click on it, in search. You can search for TestNG. I will click here and go. And it reminds a lot of Visual Studio Nugget Manager. Which is the package manager. So you are here. The TestNG to Eclipse, where I will install by clicking the button here. Since TestNG is already installed on my Eclipse, it is already marked here as installed. But if it doesn't, it will appear as installed. You click install, wait for the installation, and click just OK. And it ends. So TestNG has already will be enabled for your Eclipse. Soon after, we must install Java, but I already mentioned it in the previous class. You will download the JRE, which is Java for Development, the most current version possible. You will configure the environment variable shortly thereafter. Let's now reference the libraries in our project. In addition to TestNG, I will have to also reference the Selenium client, which in this case is the WebDriver for Java, and our Selenium independent local server, which is the Selenium standalone server. Both are available on the official Selenium website. So before you set up our libraries there, I will access the Selenium downloads website. And from the beginning here, you can already download the standalone server, which is in this version here. Just click and the download will start. You're going to save. As I already have, I will not to save. And you will also download the WebDriver for the programming language you are creating a project. In our case here, the Selenium client. Let's download Java, which is also in the same version of standalone, right? Let's click here on download. It will also start downloading the library. You are going to save it too. As I already have, I'm not going to save either. These two features you can just put here in the Eclipse workspace that sits there in C colon users dash Hue Eclipse dash workspace. So you're here. I saved my WebDriver and my independent server. And how would it work now to configure the libraries? I will just right-click on the project folder. I will go into Build Path, then Configure Build Path sub-option. Here in Java Build Path, note that you have 4 tabs: Source, Projects, Libraries, and Order and Export. I will click here in Libraries and notice that we already have here our Java library added. So what are the 3 that we are going to add now? Actually, the 2 right, that would be the TestNG and the Selenium. And the Selenium we will encompass both the library, WebDriver, as well as the standalone server. So by first adding the TestNG, I simply go here at Library and notice that it will already show me some libraries that Eclipse already makes available by default, including those you've added separately. Then you will show up here for me. TestNG. I will select it. I will click on Next and I will click Finish. Ready. Here we add the TestNG library. Next, we will add the Selenium. The Selenium is as follows. I will have to click on Add Libraries and notice that it does not have available here, i.e., there is no library called the Selenium. I didn't get to check out the marketplace, but I think it's hard to have a library already with WebDriver and Selenium standalone server. But just in case, you can come here and add it manually by clicking on User Library. Click on Next and notice that you already have a library of this uncreated because I came to use in other project. But I'm just going to come here and I'm going to remove it. And I'm going to do it from scratch. Again, I go here in Add Library, I will choose User Library, and I will access User Libraries. It is going to be blank here. I will click on New, inform the name of my library, which in the case is Selenium. Okay. And now I'm going to tie up my resource to this library. What would that be? My library and my server. My library here is in the .zip format, and the server that is here in the .jar format. Can I come here? Click on Add External Jars. I will select both here. Notice that I already accessed my Eclipse workspace here, and I will select here the 2 features I downloaded. Click Open. Note that it will automatically add here my WebDriver library and also my server independent. Not presenting any errors, you simply click Apply and Close. Verify that the checkbox is actually selected from the library and then click Finish. Ready! Selenium library also added successfully. And ends by clicking on Apply and Close again. Ready! Is that it? Our project is already properly configured with the necessary libraries And in the next video lesson, we will perform the import activity of the scripts and then make the appropriate adjustments. You're right, huh? Thanks for the attention, and until then. And we have come to one of the most important steps in our process of automating functional tests, that is the import of the scripts that we exported once. These scripts should be inside the tests folder, which is the same folder where the package was created. The fact that we created the package with .example.tests caused the Eclipse to create a directory, a folder com, within it a subfolder example, and then the subfolder tests. Within this folder, we wanted to add our exported scripts in Java format. So I'm going to access here my folder containing the exported scripts. Here are the 3 test cases and the suite, and in the case I'm not going to include the suite, only test cases. So I will copy here these 3. I go to the folder of my project that is there in Eclipse Workspace users folder. I will access the folder here, Inove Teste, src com example tests. I'm going to stick it in, and when accessing my project again, I will right click here on the project folder and I will give a refresh. Notice that our package has now become a color, that is, within it already has files referencing the name hen. But if you repair the scripts are with an exclamation point. Why is that? Because as I informed, it is not enough just to import the scripts. It is necessary to make some adjustments so that you can build the project. If I came here and run, it is quite likely to appear some mistakes here. I'm going to console. Apparently it made a mistake. He failed to run the tests, and here in my console log you can check more details of what happened to then you make proper adjustments. But taking advantage of this class and how to open one of the test cases here, I wanted to talk a little bit about the structure of the exported script. So when you export the script in the format you choose, in case I choose Java, with TestNG framework, the commands will be exported in Java format, having some markings from our TestNG framework, and it's from those markings I'd like to talk a little bit here. So starting here from the top, notice that the script has the default package, the default libraries. Just below we will have to inform the others to recognize our other comments as well. Just below we have the global variables that will be used in our methods. Just below. Now I would like you to be attentive to 3 markings here, which is the before the test and the after. Why is that? Because they are going to define how our test will behave before initialization, during startup, and after its initialization, where before it means what our test will do before running the test scenario. And here, by default, it creates an instance of the browser. This driver here is an object of type WebDriver, where you create an instance of the browser, which can be Firefox, Chrome, Internet Explorer, and among others. By default, it creates from Firefox. Next is defined as the base URL. As you can see here is our base URL, livros.inoveteste.com.br, and then here an explicit wait is created, incidentally an implicit wait where it defines a maximum timeout time between comments. I talk more about it in the other course of Selenium for beginners. If you want more information about this, just acquire your course. Next, we have here the marking at test, where are all the comments regarding our test. The test scenario, including the comment we put on. Of course, here present a certain coding error in not recognizing some accented words, but nothing prevents you from being able to modify, adjust. Then note that it's here, access the contact page, and validates the layout. It's here, all the same commands as the Selenium IDE, being in Java format, and after executing, the tests are then done. Say so, an action is performed after test run that is in the markup at after by default. What is done at the end of the test is the shutdown of the browser, i.e. is to close the browser. So it's put here the quit method that closes the browser and terminates its instance. So that's it. In the next class, we will make the proper adjustments here in the scripts so you won't have this exclamation mark and so they can be executed. Thanks for the attention and until the next. Hello. Now let's make the proper adjustments to our script so we can run them. Accessing my Eclipse IDE here. One of the things to facilitate the identification of errors and thus be able to perform the appropriate adjustments is the analysis of the log that is displayed here in my console tab. Every time an error occurred or the test could not be executed, you will look at this log here and preferably always at the beginning, because it is at the beginning that the accurately details the error. The other errors here are errors common, but the main one is here at the beginning. So if you are going to analyze here, the error he gave you was the following: the folder for the executable driver should be configured for WebDriver .gco.driver existing property. And it leaves here the link for you to have more information on how to solve this problem. So what's going on after all? How I inform it? By default, the chosen driver is from Firefox. So when you export a script, by default it will already come to run in Firefox. As you can see here, driver equals new Firefox driver. And for our IDE to come open the browser, you need a driver. It is like the drivers of our operating system. For our operating system communicate with the computer parts, with the processor, with the sound, with the video, it is necessary a driver. This also goes for our project, namely the project will not communicate so alone by itself with the browser. It takes an intermediate file. This file is the driver. About the driver, you can also download directly from the official Selenium website. Click in here. I will put here Selenium download. Here in the driver section, you will get access here to the Mozilla Firefox driver, which is now called Jekyll, where you can download the latest version. You can also download from Chrome the latest version also and among other browsers. The Internet Explorer driver is here, isolated. And can download the version 32-bit or 64 bits. Once downloaded the drivers, you can put them in the project folder, also without any problem, or simply put in some folder from your local disk of your C column where you find it better. In my example here, I put in the folder C:\Selenium. So accessing here in C:\Selenium, which is a folder I keep several files related to Selenium. So I have here the Chrome driver, the Firefox driver, and the Internet Explorer driver, the version 32 and the version 64 bits. So what has to be done? It's not enough only I create an instance of the driver, but I have to inform you where this driver is located on my machine. To do so, it can be able to create a new instance of the browser. For this, I will create here a variable. And string of the kind path Firefox driver. In fact, I will already add here the value of this string. What is she getting? It will get the path here is the driver of my Firefox. Then I will access here my Selenium. I will take the path plus the driver. I'm going to paste here. And here in the markup before, that is the setting before the test run, I will add the following command: system dot set property file. He has to write. It has a string 1 and a string 2. I'm going to put this number. And what argument I'm going to put here? The same of my string. Okay? I still think there's something missing. Well, as usual, I always have my draft here, because you can't always remember everything, right? I'm going to copy my draft here, and I will add it here. Erase it here, and I will paste it here. Okay, well, then as informed, I will call the system library, and soon afterwards I will call the method setProperty. In fact, I should have chosen setProperty with 2 strings. Let me remove it here, just to see what type of setProperty is this. Exactly, is the setProperty that requests 2 parameters. One is key, and the other is the value of this key. So, as key, I will pass exactly as it says here in our log. I will pass the drive typer. Here in the case is the WebDriver .vehicle.driver is here, and have value. The value is the path where this driver is located, but as I already assigned into a variable, then I simply will only inform the variable here, which is path Firefox drive method. And that is it. That is from now, when Selenium tries to instantiate Firefox, it will recognize it and will get perform the action successfully. Remember that this must be done in the 3 scripts. I'm going to repeat the same procedure in script 2, on the 3, and I will also repeat here in script 2. And in the 3 script. Right? So I'm going to go now. I see how he behaves now. Apparently it worked. Well, it has already opened Firefox here, being that I will close it here because it is not appropriate now to run. Well, practically our script is already working. Remembering that I can still make a few more adjustments here because you see that the script is still with exclamation. What is that? Because apparently there are things that aren't being used here in my scripts. As you can see, this library here. I can just try to comment here. Well, I am commenting on the libraries that aren't being used. Nothing that Eclipse itself has already added. Libraries needed so I can run my tests. If this does not happen, you can include it manually. Beyond that, library is not being used also has methods that are not being used. I can just also come here and comment on them. I can do the same for the other scripts. Here this, comment on that one too, and comment out those methods that are not being used. And I will repeat here in the second script as well. Save it. Here has made some mistake. Actually, I wasn't supposed to mention this one. This one is being used, yes. I will comment from here down. Click here and paste it here. Get out of here. But actually, this one is not being used even. It was just this one that he was really using. That is element present. He's not hearing it, so there's no reason to be available. This is also not using, so can leave in market also. Let me save again. Save everything. Let's see what's still presenting error here. Look, there's a variable here that's not being used. So I am going to comment too. Here too. And here too. We are going to save it again. Ready. Now our script is 100% functional. There is no syntax error, no warning. The syntax itself is working fine. But to know if it's really working properly, it has to meet the requirements of the application. But that's only when we execute. But before I finish this class, one thing important also that I'd like to treat. In this video lesson, you can maximize your browser, because by default it comes with a screen, slightly resized. So to work around this problem, you can simply come here in Before, and after you instantiate your browser, you can simply call here the driver, which is our object. driver.manage.windows.maximize. To maximize your browser screen and be able to make this test with the screen wide open, I'm going to put all the scripts here below the instance of my browser. Then I'm going to save. Okay. Well, I hope you enjoyed this class. It was a bit lengthy, but it was very productive. And in the next video lesson, we will run these scripts and see how they behave here directly from our test project. So thanks for the attention, a hug and even. Hello, arriving at our penultimate class of Selenium free course, we will now run our scripts through our Java project. The procedure is very simple. Just access the Run menu, then the menu Runs as, and choose the Test NG option. The Eclipse will open a kind of a Test NG tab, and there you will be able to check the situation of each test during and after execution. So let's go. Well, we are here in our Eclipse IDE, but before we run, I would like to make an interesting adjustment. Here, where I intend to set a different browser for each script. So as mentioned in the previous class, all scripts are defined by default to be run with Firefox, but nothing prevents you from changing as long as you have the driver of the other browser. So for script 1, let's do the following. For script 1, I will put Internet Explorer. So I will simply change here. Instead of path Firefox driver, I will put path IE driver. And I will change here the name of the file, the name of my driver here on the way. I go there in my folder C Selenium, where my driver, and I will copy here. Incidentally, my system is 64 bits, so I'm going to get 64 bits. And I'm going to put here red, and change variable to path IE driver. Here in my before my marking of here, instead of being Gcode, I will put IE. Save. And I'm going to do a similar procedure here in my second test case, but changing to Chrome. So I'm go again in my folder Selenium. I will copy the Chrome driver, add here, I am going to change the variable to path Chrome driver, and I will to change here too. And here I will replace from Gcode to Chrome. I will save YouTube. So what would be the logic? I'm going to ask you to run my 3 tests. They will run sequentially because it is not defined as parallel. Even if you want to know how to run the tests in parallel, you can acquire the advanced course of Selenium WebDriver. We're teaching this technique. So the logic here is to run each test script at a time, being that it in your browser, namely, we'll first run in Internet Explorer, the second in Chrome, and the third in Firefox. Let's see if you really behave like this. Good, run the Firefox again. You have to understand why he did it, since I changed my scripts. I know what happened. Try to open Firefox again. It shows here that only one has passed. That was my CT01 validate layout. The others present errors here. Let's make the proper adjustment. What happened here? It was this. I informed the parameters of the correct browser. However, I forgot to change the constructor. When I give a new drive, I have to pass the constructor. And what happened was this. I didn't change it. I should have put it here. Internet Explorer driver. Now, okay. As a recommendation, he asks to import the Internet Explorer library, which is from OpenQA, Selenium IE. I will click here, so you can recognize this builder you just added here, okay? And I should do that too in the second test case. And where is Firefox? I will put the same thing. It will give me the suggestion, and I will ask to import the OpenQA Selenium from library. Also added. These commands are not being used. For example, the Firefox library. I will comment on both the first and second test case. Save. I will select from bottom to top. I'm going to close those flaps. And on the console, I'm going to clean. Clear. So let's run it again. So the first thing here is to open Internet Explorer, right? First, it executed the test case 2. Access the site. Here it will validate the criticism of the fields. Click the button. We'll wait. And it ended. Apparently, their third test case. presets with Firefox. Access the site from the contact page. Fill the fields. The execution was very fast. I thought it would be necessary to put a pause. So let's click here again. The 3 were executed. 2 had failed and 1 jumped. Explains the result. You can see that both have not passed. So I will click here in the second. Here he says he didn't find that word. But why? Because it really gave a code error. That is, my strings are with a different encoding. That is why you didn't recognize it. You'd have to modify it too. So let's access the contact page by website. Because it looks like he is out of pause. How could you not wait jump? So we'll add a pause here. Of course, it has been a while since I programmed Java. I forgot how to pause Java. I'm not ashamed to say that no. Syntax a little different between the languages. You just forget it. I will search here pause Java. I'm going to take a quick break while I search this Java command. Well, coming back in here, when I went to realize the same command of sleep used in C#, they even used it here in Java. Amazing as it sounds, it was just me calling the thread class, then call the sleep method and pass the millisecond as the parameter. So it's the same thing, to my surprise. Then all the scripts have already been corrected. Just to recap. The first script then runs in IE, and I changed it to the 32-bit driver. The second script I had to change the expected value I had given the coding error. I had to put the value correct here. It is now spelled correctly. The field is mandatory. And the third, I needed to put a sleep here for save it. I put up to 20 seconds to make sure he will wait for the message to appear to then do the check. So let's go to the execution again. I already saved it here. I will select the three scripts, access the run as option and run as testng. Run Chrome, access the contact form, Really is very slow the site. It may be that other students who are taking my course are accessing the site. Let's execute it again. I don't know why this is losing focus. Run as test.ng. Let's go. The test passed. Let's access our log here, and it is there. The 3 tests were run. None came up wrong, and none jumped. I will access the results by my test.ng, and it is there 100%. All the tests worked perfectly, okay? So that is it. I hope you have learned how to run the tests in the Java test project. Of course, the adjustments are inevitable. As I informed from the beginning, you will hardly import the script and you will be able to run them right away. It is certain to be necessary make some adjustments until they stay 100% functional, and so your tests come to work. Right? So until next time, and let's talk about the reporting. A hug, and until then. Hello tester! And we finally got to the last class of our free Selenium course. To finalize our functional test automation process, we will now generate the execution report of the tests. But for that, it is necessary to answer that famous question again. Is the test suite complete and consistent? Yes or no? Why the question? Because I wouldn't make any sense for you to generate the report knowing that your tests are inconsistent, but not because there are bugs in the application, but simply by the fact that their scripts are breaking for lack of maintenance. So, if that's your case, the tests are still not running successfully by failure, even maintenance. Then you will answer no, where you will be redirected to the step where you set your scripts. That is, you import the scripts and immediately you adjust and then you return to that step. Make proper adjustments. If it is actually found that the application is bug-free, no errors, then adjust their scripts so that they can get 100% functional. Just after, you go through the execution again. See if they really are meeting the requirements and if they are not breaking. If you stay 100%, then you go through the decision again, and this time you answer yes. Is the test suite complete and consistent? Yes. In our case, the suite is working perfectly. Then, we will be redirected to that last step of our process, which is the issuance of test reports. TestNG himself will take care of that. If you repair that in our project, this default folder is generated called test output, where TestNG generates some reports in different formats regarding the execution of the tests. If perhaps that in your project does not appear this folder, you can simply come here to click with the right click and then refresh. The folder will be displayed immediately. Or simply, you can come in Build, Path, Configure, Build, Path, and access the TestNG option. The folder name must be in Output directory. I'm going to close here. When you access the folder, you will follow several report files here. We have in XML or other format in HTML format. But the main report, which has so say a more readable and easy to understand layout, it is in the default folder suite. And by clicking on the HTML default test, Eclipse will open the report on a kind of web page where you will be able to check all your test cases. The time that each led to be executed, and their status, which in the case is here as passed. That is why everyone's green. The simplify form and you can forward these reports or even print is simply by right-clicking here in this space and choosing Print. Where it scares the wizard to appear and you choose whether you want to print or really you want to generate in format PDF. You can also see how the printout should look. It's here. I'm going to zoom in. And here's our report on the test run, okay? Well, that's it. We've closed our course. It was a basic course, a quick course, but I think it was enough to teach you the right way to automate the tests. To allow you to know that you need to follow a process for you to perform this automation test the best possible way and in a more organized way, in a more efficient way. You are right, Hub? I wish you a lot of luck in your career, success in testing, and anything we see around. A big hug, and until then,